Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais with another episode of the Yakking Show Business Channel. This is a show that brings you interesting and expert guests to give you actionable tips and ideas to help your business thrive and survive in the interesting times we're heading into. We always do that with interesting guests on the show, but today is a little bit different. It's the second episode of a interview with four collaborative authors. And I'm not going to steal Kathleen's thunder, but I'm just going to say that all six of us on the screen were brought together with many other experts by Mark Schaefer, who's one of the most brilliant marketing guys in the world and acknowledged as such through his Rise community, which he started on Discord. And it's been an incredible experience to be part of that journey. And that's what led us to the project that we're going to be talking about. But my first job is to introduce co-host Kathleen Beauvais. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much for that. And thank you all for tuning into our show. We so appreciate having you. And we are absolutely delighted to have this podcast for you today. And so today's guests all co-authored the book, The Most Amazing Marketing Book Ever. Now, this is a collaborative work by 36 marketing specialists worldwide. The book is now available in paperback, audiobook, and Kindle version. So I can urge you to just go and get that book as soon as you can. We're going to jump right in with our first guest, Valentina Escobar Gonzalez. Hello, Valentina. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Kathleen. I'm super excited to be here today.
Now, Valentina is a seasoned marketer, social media strategist, speaker, and marketing educator specializing in helping individuals and their businesses build authentic connections with social media. She also deeply understands digital content, social media platforms, social listening practices, and digital marketing strategies with over 10 years of experience in the world of social media. So, Valentina, tell us about your chapter in the book about becoming memorable and intentional on Instagram.
Thank you, Kathleen. I am on chapter 18, and just like you said, it's on Instagram. I'm so proud to be part of this amazing project with amazing individuals. So let's just get started with some Instagram stats. There is about 2.2 billion, with the B, billion active monthly users. So this is a big platform right now where people are still using. There is about 500 million daily active users worldwide. And that's looking more like 800 million. That's an old stat. And 70% of shoppers check Instagram for their next purchase. And 83% of users state that Instagram helped them discover new products and services. And one final stat, because I just love throwing numbers out there, 87% of people will take action after seeing a product on Instagram. And the people that I work with are small business owners. So whenever I do a workshop or one-on-one consultation, I talk about being authentic, being who you are, communicating with customers. It's not like other social media platforms where you just walk in, you post something, and you walk out. You have to be actively engaged to get a following. You have to put yourself out there. And that's the secret to success with Instagram. You put yourself out there, by being consistent. That's something that if I had to say a takeaway, that would be one big thing is being consistent. If we were all consistent, we would all be rich, healthy, successful. And that's the thing with Instagram. That's how it's supposed to be. Another thing that I talk about other than consistency is being active on stories. I go on a little soapbox that people sometimes don't participate or engage or even see your newsfeed posts. But if you're consistently posting on stories, and again, what I said earlier about 500 million was the last stat that they said about stories that people are usually stories on a daily basis. We have to be active with stories. We have to use things that get people coming back. I always say in my workshops, if I wasn't visiting my family right now, I'll be having a very sad, pathetic sandwich as lunch at the moment. And what I do is I turn on my Instagram stories and I actively get engaged and come back to the same people over and over. And Instagram recognizes those things. So how do you increase engagement? You have to utilize the stickers, add the location, add hashtags. When you utilize just one hashtag, you get 70% more likes and about 392% more comments. So this is such a great thing, is utilizing hashtags, utilizing your stories, utilizing the stickers in stories, being consistent. There's a whole strategy when it comes to Instagram. So I just threw so many numbers out there. Kathleen, did you have any questions, or Peter, on Instagram?
I have a very quick one. I'm very guilty, being an old guy and a boomer, of thinking Instagram was just for kids, and it's only quite recently that we started doing anything on Instagram, and I realize I'm totally wrong, that it's not just for kids, is it?
I love my baby boomers. I live for my baby boomers because about 10,000 of you all retire every day. So all you're like, you know what? I'm bored. Let me start a new business. So a lot of you all become my clients, and I live for my baby boomers. But there is an audience. A lot of people leave Facebook because they want to see what their kids are doing on Instagram, and this is baby boomers
Right.
included. They join
Yeah.
Instagram because they want to see what their son and their daughters are doing. But there is an opportunity to engage with your market, and I can tell you it's different for every person. If you look at your analytics, if you have a business account, you can see who your audience is. And surprisingly, a lot of my audience, and I live for my Gen Xers because they're young enough to know about social media, but they don't feel confident enough to be on social media or utilize it. I'm looking at someone specifically. So in our audience here, but I love Instagram, and it does help to put yourself out there because they're all there. The baby boomers, the Gen Xers, the Gen Zs, the millennials, we're all on Instagram.
So when you
Wow, that's good.
So when you say put yourself out there, is it mostly your personality, or is it mostly about your business or your services? If you're going to be on Instagram, does one work better than the other?
I have one account for both of my lives. So I have one for my one account that's personal and business at the same time. And I just marry them both because I don't have time to have two different accounts. So I want to put myself out there. I'm selling myself. People can hire me for my marketing consulting, but they buy from me. They know and trust and like me before they look at other people. And again, 87% of people will take action after seeing a product or even a service on Instagram. So it's imperative to put your authentic self out there.
Wow, very good. Well, we're going to have a much closer look at Instagram, Kathleen.
Yeah,
Thanks very much for that, Valentina. Thank you for that. And our next author, a collaborative author, is Larry Aronson. Larry is a systems and technology consultant based in Midtown Manhattan. We're going all over the North America with this show today. He's the author of the first web development book, HTML Manual of Style, and he's a pioneer of online education and community development. Larry, you are the author of chapter 23. So tell us about your chapter, The Magic of Search Engine Optimization. Over to you, Larry.
No, thank you, Peter, and thank you, Kathleen, for this opportunity. First of all, I want to say that I'm the odd man out in this community because I'm not a marketer. I'm a business systems analyst. I've got a big, long programming background, and I don't spend that much time promoting myself or being on social media. But my wife does know Mark, and I had met him previously. So when he formed this community, which was a wonderful idea, I joined through using a QR code and a social token. We all got this space, and Mark kept it together through the crypto crash. And then Dan, who you speak to soon, came up with the idea of a joint book on marketing. Plans came together. And when the spreadsheet was put out with the possible titles and who might want to do which, I said, well, there's no chapter on search engine optimization. So they said, okay, yours. So that's how that came about. And it was a pleasure to write and work with developing all these people and to see what it's really like. But I'll get into my chapter, The Magic of Search Engine Optimization. Everybody thinks they know it, but it's a lot more complicated and yet simple too. There's, first of all, discovery, which has to happen using all the other techniques of marketing, whether it's word of mouth, whether it's social media like Instagram, whether it's your printed communication. So you have to have some awareness. And then it's findability. How do people want to find the content that you're publishing? How do they want to find how to get in touch with you? How do they want to find out information about your products and services? And where that intersects with your audience, their intents, and what they're looking for, with the different characteristics of the way they search, whether it's Google or Wikipedia or using maps. A lot of people search through maps. People search on social media and in store sites. Amazon is a big social media, a big social media platform in that it makes available huge amounts of search. It has reviews. And a lot of people go through there to find products and product information. So once you know that intent and the context and where they are in your purchase funnel, then you can optimize the content that you publish. And that's including the content that you write, the content that you curate from other sites. It's not just the website that's optimized, but it's your email communications, your written communications, your social media posts. All of this goes into the big world of searching and findability. Now, you have to talk about Google, of course, since something like 90% of all searches go through their platform one way or the other. And often it doesn't relate to direct traffic back to your website, since Google caches results and has featured snippets and other things to keep you on their page, but they're advertising instead of your page where your product, services, and your advertising is. But it still builds awareness. It's still to get into the search engine result pages and have a good high ranking. There's a lot of things you can do with your communications. Getting important and concise, very focused keywords in your opening contact headings, the alt descriptions in your images, and as well as your social media profiles, because Google and other search engines scan profiles. I don't know if they scan posts, but I'm sure they do scan your profile of you and your company. And get all of that aligned so that it supports your brand, so that it's a consistent messaging and style across all of your communications, and then making it sync. By that, I mean, you got to speed up a website, make sure that there's nothing just getting loaded and happening and on every page, even though it's only used on the one page. Make sure that you have a consistent path towards a call to action, and that your pages really convert. Because if your pages, that last page, if it doesn't convert, then everything else you do up to that point is kind of wasted. Mm. So that's in a kind of nutshell. I'd love to take a question.
Well, I got one for you. Given the inflationary and somewhat uncertain times that we seem to be heading into, of all the things you've been talking about, what's the one area that you would say small business owners should be concentrating on right now? And again, let me add a subsequent one. Google have changed the way that we look at the analytics as well. So taking those two as into consideration, what should our audience be looking at today to try and help them improve their businesses?
I'll give you that in the third. The first one was the most important thing you can do is establish your expertise in a niche that's unique to you. Get high conversion under a small audience is better than getting ultra low conversion over a wider audience. It's cheaper once you establish and find that community. And you have to do that research. The second question you had, I'm sorry, remind me again.
The change in how we interpret Google Analytics with their new system that came in 1st July.
It's the GA4, Google Analytics 4, is more about the transitions and the transactions from one state to another. So you know how your customers get to you, the path they take. Funnel is an overused word, but it serves as one image. And if you're on a WordPress site, if that's what you're promoting all your content on, then just get SiteKit by Google as a plugin. It gives you all your analytics for most small businesses right in your WordPress dashboard. If you're a bigger company with lots of items in the catalog, of course, you'll need a much more complex and comprehensive solution. But SiteKit, which I have been installing on a couple of my customers who have come into this lately, seems to please them very great and gives you what you're looking for. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is voice. My wife and I got into the voice community in 2019 and managed to discover that there's a whole world of both programmers that are working in the Alexa and Google Assistant space, plus linguists who have been working in the interactive voice assistants and response unit space and analysis and everything. And essentially, as we go towards the metaverse, And the Internet of Things, the keyboard's not going to do it. People are going to be talking and listening, right, more than they type. And that means you have to think about how they are talking to these devices, and whether they're typing into ChatGPT or talking into their smartphone, just ask for directions or whatever. They're making full, complete sentences. And the qualities of their voice can be analyzed in such a way that you can do some advanced sentiment analysis. And on the back end, when you speak back to them, you can tailor a voice and see how, to work and build trust.
Wow, thanks, Larry. Well, there's 3 really good tips for our audience to look at. Sorry, my hearing is awful. The WordPress plugin for analytics that you mentioned, is it Sitekit?
SITE space KIT.
Okay.
Sitekit. Okay, got it. Thank you very much. Thanks for that. Back to you, Kathleen.
All right. Well, our next guest is Dan Nestle. Welcome, Dan.
Hi, Kathleen. It's good to see you. And Peter, thank you so much. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Dan is an award-winning global communications and marketing innovator and leader with over 20 years of success in B2B services, manufacturing, finance, and education. His broad areas of expertise include digital communications, integrated marketing communications, content marketing, social media strategy, and brand storytelling. So, Dan, tell us about your chapter on strategic communications.
Well, thanks for setting the stage and pumping me up like that. I wonder who wrote that bio. I think I am a storyteller after all. So if I can't tell a story about myself, who can I tell a story about? I've been in this business of connecting with audiences in various kinds of audiences for over 20 something years. And since the time of David Meerman Scott's fantastic New Rules of Marketing and PR, my world shifted into this whole idea that, marketing and PR should be together. That a lot of the tactics that we see in PR and now we're calling it strategic communications more often are tactics and strategies that should be employed more by marketers and by business owners. And while we were putting this whole book together, it sort of occurred to me, well, first of all, I'm also kind of an island in the community in that I'm really the only, or not anymore, but I was at the time the only PR guy around. And, I've been in the PR/communications world for the last at least 7 or 8 years of my career, more focused in that space. It occurred to me that this is part of the PR and communications discipline should be part of every marketer's toolkit, no matter what kind of a organization or business you're working for, whether it's yourself or whether it's a large organization, doesn't matter. And the reason is because of a small thing we call trust. And that's where I really go with the chapters. I decided to focus in just on that concept of trust because it's overused and overspent. And how can we take this idea and leverage it or understand it so that we can actually create a competitive advantage or more like embrace the competitive advantage that we should have if we are a trustworthy brand or person or company, right? So thinking of it from that end, our business in PR and communications really is about reputation protection, reputation building, and that all centers around trust. Early on, Valentina, I think, brought up that 2.2 billion users, the 2.2 billion daily average users or something of Instagram. And I ask you, how many daily average users are there of trust? Right? Almost like 7 point something billion, right? That's how many people there are on Earth. We should have trust flowing through our society, flowing through everything we do. But trust has been on the decline. And we all know this. We can feel it. We can see it. It's ever present in social media for sure, in the political environment we're in. So we need to consider very carefully how we connect with our audiences in such a way that we can either earn their trust or maintain their trust in this environment where the kind of default is, I'm not sure if I trust you. So how does that happen? And I think that PR and communications is probably one of the levers that you can pull to understand how to build trust for you and your brand. I start off the chapter talking about the Edelman Trust Barometer, and which, by the way, has recently been updated, but still reinforces the point that it might be counterintuitive, but actually, of all the institutions out there, businesses are still among the most trusted. We're more trusted. Business is more trusted than government, certainly more trusted than media, which is in the pits. And it's almost as trusted as any other institution. The only thing that's I think more trusted than businesses are people like you, people, which I wouldn't consider people institution. But among the institutions, if you know that your business has the potential to be trusted, then take the time, look at what you're doing, look at how you're representing yourself, and focus in on how you're going to build trust to build that competitive advantage. So in the chapter, I talk about 10 things that you can do, or 10 ways that maybe you should be thinking about trust, and then how you can bring those to bear for your own business and for your audiences. And a lot of it's about really things that marketers are uncomfortable with because they're not immediately measurable things. Like, for example, have good sense and good intentions. We think we know what that is, but good sense and good intentions is it's a starting point. How do you understand that your audiences are not audiences, but they're stakeholders? And a stakeholder could be your buyers. It could be your employees, right? It could be your fellow congregants in a church or synagogue. It doesn't matter. These are your stakeholders, your family. How do you connect the ideas of your employees into trust? Like, how do you activate employees to get into trust? How do you understand the fact that people aren't into conversion anymore? They want conversation, and conversation is really a specific domain. I think that PR communications has superpowers in. So, how can we help our businesses to be better communicators by being better conversationalists, and making certain choices that make you more human across the things that you do. So all of these things, I think, ladder up into reputation. And of course, there's things like, how do you deal with a crisis? How do you measure reputation? All these things are important. But that's really where I go with my chapter. I feel like I've wound around a little bit here, Peter. But if you have any questions about it at this time, I think, I have, it's probably easier for me if I'm talking about conversation. It's easier for me to have a conversation than a lecture in some ways. So, yeah.
No, I think you've done very well from my perspective, Dan. You've done very well, and we're certainly seeing in the people that we interview on the show this decline in trust for institutions, and in our personal lives. We see it up here in Canada. We see it huge distrust of the media and government, particularly our current government. But let's not get into politics. I have a question for you, which is not specific, but I think it's relevant, and that is you have a lot of experience with working with a Japanese company and with marketing and in Asia. Is there a major difference in how Japanese marketers go about establishing trust or nurturing trust compared to North American marketers? Is there a cultural difference, and is one more effective than the other? I'm just interested.
Well, I think you're going to have to invite me back for a whole show about that. But in reality, yes, there are, and a lot of that has to do with the way that people, communicate culturally from the beginning. They're a collectivist communication society. It doesn't mean they're communists or they're collectivists in general, but the way that that the Japanese and a lot of Asian cultures approach things is with a consensus building approach, and they often have trust built into the system amongst themselves, amongst their social connections, before they even get to the table. So when you are a brand, or when you are a person trying to break into that society or sell a product, building that trust means getting into that consensus more.
Right.
That's it's a little bit different. The things that can hurt trust are the same things that can hurt trust anywhere. I feel like the Japanese, in my own experience, are quicker to forgive when they are asked with a sincere, a sincere apology goes a very, very long way. But that's I think a broad generalization. It's a very, there are differences in the way that we build trust.
No, thanks, Dan. And again, we probably need to get you back to have a whole episode on that, because I'm sure a
Sure.
lot of people would find it interesting. So
Um,
thank you very much.
Did you want to? I thought I forgot to say there was one actionable item that I wanted to
Yes,
point
please.
out.
Let's
And I
hear it.
apologize for not getting to that earlier.
Don't worry.
But I did want to say something very simple that's not in the book, and that I think anybody out there who, whether you're a PR person or a marketer, it doesn't matter, kind of an oldie but goodie, which is: are you checking your reputation? Are you Googling yourself every day, or your brand? Do you have alerts set to to monitor what's being said about you and your brand in the marketplace? Very simple, actionable, can make it happen like while you're even listening to this. Set an alert for your name, for your brand, to monitor the activity that's going on around about you, to make sure that your trust is solid.
Right.
Very, very good idea. And I must confess, I do that. And the downside of that, when you have a common name like mine, there's some infamous Peter Wrights in the world, and one has to make sure one doesn't get too alarmed by some of the news items that Google Alerts kicks out. Anyway, but it's a good point. It's a good point. Thank you, Dan. Our next collaborative author is Zack Seipert. Zack's the marketing and communications specialist for the Central Utah Water Conservancy District. And Zack knows how to get important messages seen, heard, and most importantly, understood in today's fast-paced world. He currently serves as a training committee member for the Government Social Media Membership Council. And Zack is the author of Chapter 27. So Zack, can you tell us about the secret power of word-of-mouth marketing?
Yes, thank you so much, Kathleen and Peter, for having me on the show. This has been great listening into all the other authors and their insights and backstories. So I will be 100% transparent. I did not want to write about word of mouth marketing from the get-go, but when, as Larry mentioned previously in his section, as the spreadsheet was put out there and the community members that were interested in writing a chapter were putting their names on the subjects, I found that they were flying off the shelves, much like a holiday sale. They were just going quick. And so I saw Facebook get taken right before my eyes. I saw a couple others get taken right before my eyes, and I settled with word of mouth marketing. But settle is not the right word, because word of mouth marketing is so important. And it's so important, even more so today, I would argue. And I kind of get into that a little bit in the chapter, how this overarching idea that we've been talking about with the other authors today, the idea of trust, and how trust is 100% associated with a word of mouth recommendation from a friend. And I didn't put this in the book, but since writing the chapter, I've been pondering word of mouth a lot, as you can imagine, as I've been invited to do shows like this or talk about my contribution to the book. And I have come to the conclusion that I think there's going to be a word of mouth renaissance, if you will, here in the near future. And this is largely because, as again, we mentioned, the lack of trust in communities, the lack of trust in our businesses and government. I'm lucky enough to be one of those suckers in the government right now, dealing with the lack of trust. And it is an uphill battle, let me tell you. But a word of mouth recommendation, as I mentioned, comes with a certain level of trust, because you are putting your reputation on the line when you mentioned a brand or a product or a service to a friend. And that level of trust carries across over with that recommendation. And I also think that this renaissance will come about with word of mouth due to technological advances. We saw just since writing this book and getting the idea across of writing it, ChatGPT came out and Midjourney came out, and all these other AI tools that come out almost on the daily. And it's, where do we turn? What is true? What's not true? In the community, we saw somebody posted, I can't remember who it was, I believe it was Spencer, maybe Dan even, images of politicians doing things that are wildly inappropriate, and they were all deep fakes created by somebody using this artificial intelligence. So word of mouth marketing has always been important, but it's even more important in today's world. And the tips and insights I give in my chapter, I think, are perfect for small business owners, entrepreneurs who want to dabble in word of mouth and kind of take this approach into a medium that is underused and under discussed in marketing. And super excited to be part of this project and super proud of the work that our community's put together into this book.
Excellent. And am I right in saying that word of mouth is probably the oldest method of marketing, if you think back, because we had Jeff Tarrant on Monday just talking about direct mail being a very old method, and he's absolutely right. But if you think back to the days before people had things to write on, one person talking to the next was word of mouth marketing, right?
100%. I think, and I mentioned this in the book, it's been around for millennia, arguably, since civilizations itself communities have been built into families, and different people have organized themselves in the communities. You think about when civilization first began, there was fishermen, there was bakers, there was butchers. Everybody knew their butcher by name. I don't know who the butcher is at my local Walmart anymore, but the word of mouth is definitely still important, and it's definitely something that needs to be thought about here. And it could be a differentiation factor for lots of businesses, especially small businesses today.
Absolutely. And another important point, a lot of people think word of mouth is only applicable to consumer marketing, but it's equally important in business to business marketing. And I think back to my farming days in Africa, 30, 40 years ago, and at the monthly cattle sale, one farmer would talk to the next about which cattle dip he used, and oh, well, I like that guy because his company looks after me, and he'd done the sale for them, so it's applicable certainly in industrial marketing. Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Zach. We have a couple of minutes. Has anyone got a question for someone else, or a snippet, or a general comment about being involved in the project that they would like to throw in before we finish off?
I have something to say.
Sure.
Yeah, go for it.
Ahead.
Buy the book. It's really good.
Oh, and I forgot that. Well, thank you for that. In the
It's-
description of whichever platform you're looking at this on or listening to this, you will see a link to get the book from Amazon. And Kathleen knows what formats it comes in. What was it? I've forgotten.
Yes. As I mentioned earlier, it comes in paperback, audiobook, and Kindle versions.
Kindle.
It's an essential guide for any business that wants to be bigger business, wants to grow, and wants to develop their market. It really is. I've been amazed at reading my co-authors' chapters. Every one of them is solid and in sync.
I'll reinforce that. And what I really like about it, compared to most business books, in every chapter you've got 10 tips. And even if only 5 of those are applicable to you and your business today, that's more you're getting in 10 other marketing books put together. So I like the way it's put together. There's lots of really good advice in there. So buy the book, as Larry said. Well, Kathleen, I'm going to send it back to you to finish off.
Great. And thank you all so very much for joining us today. It was an absolute privilege having you on the show. So good luck to all of you. As we mentioned again, go out and buy this book. It is a must-have for any small business entrepreneur. Really, it is. And thank you again for tuning into our show. We so appreciated having you. And if anyone is interested in being a guest on our show, we invite you to visit our website at theyakkingshow.com. All you need to do is click on the Contacts tab, where you will find a short application form, and we would love to hear from you. So until next time, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.